You've seen it before, loud men barking threats, puffing their chests, desperate to prove their dominance. But real power? Real power doesn't speak. The most feared men in history weren't the ones who shouted the loudest. They were the ones who made people uneasy just by existing. Your enemies don't fear what they can predict. They fear the unknown. They fear the man who doesn't react, who doesn't explain, who doesn't give them anything to hold on to. They fear the man they can't read, the one whose silence speaks louder than any threat. Weak people need to be heard, but those who truly hold power, they let their presence do the talking. Seneca once said, "The best way to defeat your enemy is to refuse to be like them." A man who cannot be provoked cannot be controlled. A man who is unreadable cannot be outmaneuvered. This is how you make them fear you, not with words, not with anger, but with an unshakable presence that makes them doubt themselves. Today, we're breaking down 10 ways to command fear and respect without ever speaking a word. If you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or disrespected, this is how you make them regret it. Comment below. Power is in silence. If you've ever watched someone lose their mind trying to get a reaction from you. Share your experience. Your story might teach someone else how to rise above the noise. Like, share and subscribe to Victory Stoic for more unfiltered wisdom on strength, control, and power. And stick around, because the next strategy will make them question everything they thought they knew about you. Number 1. The power of self-control. David sat at the dinner table, his jaw tightening as his brother-in-law Mark made yet another passive-aggressive comment. Still working that same job, huh? Must be nice to have no ambition. A few years ago, David would have snapped back, let his anger take over, and given Mark exactly what he wanted, a reaction. But not tonight. He looked at Mark, held his gaze for a second too long, then turned back to his plate and kept eating. No words, no expression, just complete indifference. And in that moment, something shifted. Mark expected an argument. He wanted a rise. But instead, he was left hanging in his own insecurity. Weak men seek validation through provocation. They poke, they prod, they insult, not to prove their strength, but to test yours. The moment you take the bait, the moment you react emotionally, you hand them control. They now dictate your mood, your energy, your focus. But the man who does not react, the one who absorbs the insult, the disrespect, and remains unaffected, that man is terrifying. Because you cannot control someone who does not respond to your games. In a famous historical example, Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius was repeatedly insulted by his own general, Avidius Cassius. Cassius mocked him, belittled him, even spread rumors in an attempt to provoke a response. But Aurelius never reacted. He didn't write back, he didn't send soldiers, he didn't even acknowledge the insults. Instead, he focused on running the empire, as if Cassius didn't exist. And in the end, Cassius collapsed under his own paranoia, fearful of a retaliation that never came. Aurelius understood what most men never will: silence is stronger than any insult. A man who cannot be provoked is a man who cannot be controlled. In everyday life, this plays out constantly. The coworker who tries to undermine you in meetings, the ex who posts on social media just to get a reaction, the friend who suddenly turns cold, waiting for you to chase after them. All of them operate on the same principle: pull you into an emotional game where they make the rules. But the moment you refuse to play, they lose. David finished his meal that night without saying another word to Mark. And Mark? He spent the rest of the evening trying to get back into David's head, because there's nothing more unsettling than attacking someone and realizing they don't even see you as a threat. Number 2. The fool argues, the wise man smirks. Ethan was at a party when some guy, let's call him Todd, decided to pick a fight. You know, people who read all that stoic nonsense are just scared of real emotions. Todd sneered, swirling his drink like he was delivering some profound revelation. Ethan didn't blink. He didn't rush to defend himself, didn't start quoting Marcus Aurelius like some philosophy professor desperate for tenure. He just took a sip of his drink, gave Todd a slow, almost bored smile, and let silence hang in the air. And suddenly, Todd wasn't so sure of himself. See, people like Todd don't start arguments because they care about the truth. They start them because they need attention. They need you to get defensive, to raise your voice, to prove them wrong, because the moment you engage, you validate them. But the man who doesn't argue? That man is a problem. Because when you refuse to take the bait, the person trying to get under your skin is left exposed, fumbling, desperate to fill the silence. The Roman philosopher Sextus Empiricus once said, "The one who talks most often understands the least." And that's why the smartest men in the room are usually the quietest. They know that a fool will keep talking until he reveals his own ignorance. Think about it. Have you ever seen someone absolutely lose their mind because the other person just wouldn't argue back? It drives them crazy. They start talking faster, their voice gets louder, they get more aggressive, because deep down, they need you to care. But when you don't, when you just sit there calm, indifferent, maybe even amused, that's when they start doubting themselves. Ethan watched as Todd tripped over his own words, trying harder and harder to get a reaction. But the conversation was already over because Ethan had never even entered it. Number 3, keep your plans to yourself. Let them choke on the surprise. Brian had been working his corporate job for years, stacking up skills, saving money, and quietly building his side business. But he had made one crucial decision. He wasn't going to tell a soul. Not his colleagues, not his manager, not even that one work friend who always claimed to have his back, but somehow spread every piece of gossip like wildfire. Nobody. Because Brian understood something most people don't. The fastest way to kill a dream is to announce it to people who don't want to see you succeed. The moment you tell your coworkers you're planning to leave, the dynamic shifts. Some will smile and nod, pretending to support you, but deep down, they're hoping you fail. Others will outright discourage you. Are you sure that's a good idea? Most businesses don't even last a year. You have it good here, why risk it? Because if you succeed, it forces them to face their own excuses. And then there are the truly bitter ones. The ones who will whisper your plans to the wrong person, maybe even to your boss, just to make sure your exit is as difficult as possible. People can't sabotage what they don't know about. They can't spread rumors about a plan they haven't heard. They can't attack what they can't see. That's why the strongest moves are made in silence. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Be silent about what you intend to do, for that way you are less likely to fail." Not because failure is shameful, but because the fewer obstacles you place in your own way, the better. Brian stuck to his plan. While his colleagues wasted time gossiping, complaining about the company, and fantasizing about quitting without ever making a move, he was executing. And then, one day, he was gone. No warnings, no goodbyes, just an empty desk and an out-of-office email. And his coworkers? They weren't just shocked, they were uncomfortable. Because Brian had done what they all talked about, but never had the courage to do. And worst of all, he hadn't even given them the satisfaction of watching him struggle. So if you're planning to make a move, whether it's starting a business, switching careers, or changing your life in any major way, keep it quiet. Let them see the results, not the process. Because the loudest people in the room are the easiest to stop, but no one can stop what they never saw coming. Number 4, never complain or show weakness. Your enemies are listening. Jake had a habit, one he didn't even realize was destroying him. Every day at work, he grumbled about his boss. Every time he faced a setback, he vented to his colleagues. Every moment of frustration, he let it out in front of whoever would listen. He thought it was harmless, just blowing off steam. But what he didn't see was the way his words were shaping the way people saw him. And worse, the way they were shaping his own brain. Neuroscientists have studied the effects of negative speech on brain activity, and the results are brutal. A study from Stanford University found that repeated exposure to negative language, whether spoken by yourself or someone else, actually rewires the brain for stress and anxiety. The more you complain, the more your brain strengthens the neural pathways for negativity, making you more likely to see problems, feel defeated, and stay stuck. But it doesn't stop there. When you vocalize weakness, you broadcast it to everyone around you. You think you're just venting, but to others, you're telling them exactly where to hit you. Your enemies? They don't have to guess your insecurities. You've already handed them the map. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus once said, "The man who complains invites others to pity him, but he also invites them to despise him." People might pretend to sympathize, but deep down, they are judging you. Even worse, some are making mental notes, storing away your weaknesses for when they need them. Jake eventually learned this lesson the hard way. The coworker he had confided in, she wasn't as trustworthy as he thought. When a promotion came up, she casually mentioned to the boss that Jake was always overwhelmed, always complaining about stress. He never even saw it coming. After that, Jake made a vow. No more public frustrations, no more complaining, no more handing people the tools to use against him. Instead, he handled his struggles privately, trained himself to speak only of solutions, and kept his weaknesses locked behind an iron wall. The result? People stopped seeing him as fragile. He stopped feeling fragile. His mind rewired itself for strength, not defeat. Your words shape your reality. Speak of weakness, and you become weak. Speak of power, and you become powerful. And the best way to keep power? Make sure no one ever sees where you're vulnerable. Number 5. Listen more, talk less. Silence is a weapon. Ryan walked into the boardroom, a junior executive in a room full of veterans. His instinct told him to speak, to prove himself, to show everyone that he belonged. But instead, he did something few people have the discipline to do. He stayed quiet. While others debated, argued, and tried to sound important, Ryan listened. He watched how people positioned themselves, how they responded under pressure, how alliances were formed and broken in real time. And by the end of the meeting, he knew exactly who held the real power in the room. The others, they were too busy talking to notice. Most people assume that speaking gives them control, that dominating the conversation makes them look intelligent. But in reality, the person who speaks the least holds the most power. Because when you're talking, you're revealing information, you're exposing your thoughts, your emotions, your weaknesses. But when you're silent, you're absorbing everything while giving away nothing. A study from the University of California found that people who practice active listening, who engage without dominating the conversation, are perceived as more competent and influential than those who talk excessively. This is because silence makes people uncomfortable. When you don't immediately react, they start second-guessing themselves. They fill the silence with more words, more explanations, more exposure. And in that moment, they give you everything you need. The Stoic philosopher Zeno of Citium, founder of Stoicism, understood this principle well. He famously said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak." A wise man gathers knowledge, while a fool rushes to reveal his ignorance. In real life, this plays out constantly. The salesman who talks too much and loses the deal. The person in an argument who reveals their insecurities by over-explaining. The negotiator who caves because they can't stand the weight of silence. The person who cannot stay quiet is the easiest to manipulate. Ryan kept this lesson with him, rising through the ranks while others talked their way out of opportunities. By the time he was promoted, his colleagues were still too busy explaining themselves to notice that he had already won. If you want power, influence, and control over any situation, say less. Observe more. Let others reveal themselves. Because when you master silence, you stop being predictable, and that makes you dangerous. Number 6. Walk and act with confidence. Power is felt, not announced. What is presence? What is that unspoken force that makes some people command attention the second they enter a room, without saying a word, without demanding it? It's not their clothes, not their wealth, not even their looks. It's something deeper. It's their aura, their energy, their undeniable confidence. Some call it charisma, some call it dominance. The Stoics simply called it self-mastery. Confidence isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. A man who is truly strong doesn't walk around flexing his muscles, barking orders, or forcing people to notice him. His presence alone is enough. Because confidence isn't about what you say, it's about how you carry yourself. A study from Harvard University found that people form first impressions in less than a second based on posture, facial expression, and movement. Those who walk with purpose, who hold their head high, who exude certainty in their body language, are instantly perceived as more powerful, more competent, and more dominant. Meanwhile, those who slouch, fidget, or hesitate send subconscious signals of weakness. The Stoics knew this long before science confirmed it. Epictetus once said, "Appear weak, and you will be treated as weak. Appear strong, and you need not say a word." Think about it. Who commands more respect? The man who demands that people listen to him, or the one who people naturally turn to for guidance? The man who argues endlessly about his worth, or the one who simply acts like he belongs? The man who overcompensates, or the one who doesn't care if you approve of him or not? A king doesn't need to prove he's a king. A lion doesn't need to roar to be feared. And a truly powerful man, he doesn't need validation. He simply moves through the world like someone who already has it. Picture two men walking into a room. One rushes in, scanning the crowd, adjusting his clothes, looking around for approval. The other walks in slowly, with measured steps, a relaxed but strong posture, his eyes steady, his movements deliberate. Who do you notice first? That's the power of presence. Confidence isn't something you need to announce. If you have it, people will feel it. And if you don't, no amount of talking will hide it. So don't waste time trying to prove yourself. Just be the kind of person who doesn't need to. Number 7, dress sharp because people judge what they see before they hear you speak. You walk into a room. Before you say a word, before you shake a hand, before anyone even knows your name, they've already decided what kind of person you are. It's not fair, it's not logical, but it's human nature. Your appearance speaks before you do. Some people hate this fact. They argue it shouldn't matter what I wear. People should judge me on my skills, my intelligence, my character. But reality doesn't care about your feelings. People make snap judgments in seconds, and they do it based on what they see. A study from Princeton University found that humans form first impressions in as little as 100 milliseconds based on facial expressions, posture, and most importantly, appearance. Well-dressed individuals are consistently perceived as more competent, more trustworthy, and more authoritative. Meanwhile, those who look sloppy, unkempt, or careless are often subconsciously dismissed before they even get a chance to prove themselves. And it goes beyond perception. How you dress affects how you feel about yourself. Ever notice that when you put on a well-fitted suit, a crisp shirt, or even just a clean, well-matched outfit, you move differently? You stand taller. You walk with more purpose. You command more attention. Because deep down, your brain registers that you are showing up as the best version of yourself. The Stoics understood the power of discipline in all things, including presentation. Epictetus once said, "How you do anything is how you do everything." A man who can't control how he presents himself, who can't even manage his own appearance, how can he manage anything bigger? If you look careless, people assume you are careless. If you look undisciplined, they assume you are undisciplined. Now, this doesn't mean you need to wear expensive designer clothes or follow every trend. Dressing well isn't about fashion, it's about self-respect. A sharp, well-groomed appearance tells the world, 1. I have standards. 2. I take myself seriously. 3. I can be trusted with bigger responsibilities. And it's not just about impressing others. It's about commanding respect. People may not consciously think, this man is powerful because he dresses well, but they will feel it. A man who walks in with confidence, dressed with precision, is not someone to be ignored. Because if you can't manage your own appearance, how can anyone trust you to manage anything else? Number 8. Never reveal your weaknesses. Your silence is your shield. Derek had always been an open book. He thought honesty was a virtue, that sharing struggles brought people closer. So he talked about his financial stress, his personal insecurities, his struggles at work. He believed that people would sympathize, maybe even help him. They didn't. Instead, they stored his words. Not consciously, not maliciously, at least not at first. But people remember vulnerability. And when the time came, when Derek needed a promotion, when he needed someone to stand by him, his own words were used against him. One coworker casually mentioned how stressed and overwhelmed Derek always seemed. A friend who once nodded sympathetically now subtly distanced himself. Even his manager hesitated, remembering all those complaints about money struggles. Would Derek be a stable choice for leadership? Derek had made a crucial mistake. He had armed the wrong people with the right information. The harsh truth? No one needs to know your weaknesses. Not your coworkers, not casual friends, not even most family members. Because the more people know, the more power they hold over you. A study from the University of California found that when people learn about someone's struggles, especially financial struggles, they subconsciously respect them less. Not out of cruelty, but because humans are wired to gravitate toward perceived strength and stability. Even if they don't act against you, they start to see you differently. And let's be clear, this isn't about arrogance or pretending life is perfect. It's about strategic discretion. You don't need to lie, but you also don't need to volunteer information that makes you vulnerable. Your struggles are yours to carry, not gossip for others to dissect. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor, wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Meaning, don't talk about your struggles. Work on them. If you're struggling financially, work harder, save better, learn smarter. If you're emotionally drained, build resilience. Seek wisdom, but don't broadcast your pain. If you're feeling lost, regain focus, but don't seek validation from those who wouldn't save you if you fell. Derek eventually learned. He stopped oversharing. He built a financial cushion, stopped seeking sympathy, and let his silence speak for him. The next time people looked at him, they didn't see a man struggling. They saw a man in control. Because when people don't know where to hit you, they have no choice but to respect you. Number 9. Let others speak of your success. The most powerful reputation is built in silence. No one respects the man who constantly talks about how great he is. You've met that guy. The one who can't go 5 minutes without mentioning his accomplishments, his wealth, his status. He forces admiration out of people, thinking that the more he talks, the more impressive he seems. But what actually happens? The more he brags, the less people respect him. True power, true prestige, isn't something you announce. It's something that is felt. Take 2 men. One walks into a room and immediately starts listing his achievements. He name drops, he flexes, he tries to dominate every conversation with stories about himself. The other walks in, says little, and simply exists in the space with quiet confidence. An hour later, who do people respect more? Not the man who shouted his success, but the one about whom others whispered. Because the moment someone else says, "That guy is impressive," it carries weight. When you say it about yourself, it's just noise. A study from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that self-promotion often backfires. People who constantly talk about their own success are viewed as less competent and less likable. However, when third parties highlight someone's achievements, perception shifts drastically in their favor. In other words, if you truly want influence, let your reputation speak for you. The Stoics understood this well. Cato the Younger, one of Rome's most respected leaders, never boasted of his virtues, never sought attention, never announced his greatness. And yet, history remembers him as one of the few men who even Julius Caesar feared. Because true power doesn't seek validation. True power knows what it is and doesn't need to prove it. So how do you make this work in real life? Simple. Focus on results. Achieve in silence. Work in the shadows. Let your impact be undeniable. And when people start talking about your greatness, say nothing. Just keep moving forward. Because the moment you have to tell people you're powerful, you've already lost the game. Number 10. Master your emotions or be controlled by them. The fastest way to lose power? Make decisions based on emotions. The man who reacts in anger, in fear, in jealousy, he is predictable. And predictability is weakness. His enemies know exactly how to provoke him, exactly which buttons to push, exactly how to make him destroy himself without them having to lift a finger. Think about the last time someone made you angry. Did they force you to yell? Did they make you say something you regretted? No, you gave them control. You let their words, their actions dictate your behavior. And the moment you lost control, they won. A powerful man doesn't make decisions when he's emotional. He doesn't respond to provocation. He doesn't rush into action just because the moment feels urgent. He waits, he calculates, he controls. The Stoics had a simple rule: control yourself or be controlled. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, faced betrayal, war, and political sabotage, but he never reacted impulsively. He understood that emotions are temporary, but decisions are permanent. Most people, however, are ruled by their impulses. A rude comment ruins their whole day. A small inconvenience makes them lash out. A moment of doubt makes them abandon a plan. They let temporary emotions dictate permanent choices, and then wonder why their life feels unstable. But the man who masters his emotions, he becomes untouchable. Insults don't shake him, chaos doesn't rattle him, fear doesn't paralyze him. He is calm when others panic, clear-headed when others are blind, strategic when others are reckless, and that is why he wins. Conclusion: silence, the unspoken power. Here's the twist: the truest strength isn't in the loudest shouts, the flashiest boasts, or the sharpest threats. It's in the quiet, the unpredictable, the shadow that doesn't need to speak to be felt. You've seen how words carve your reality, each one a chisel, shaping your mind, your body, your world. But the masters know this: sometimes the deepest cut comes from saying nothing at all. The most formidable souls don't rattle off their plans or flex their might. They stand still, a presence so heavy it unnerves without a whisper. Your voice can build or break, heal or harm, but silence? It's the ace up your sleeve, letting others squirm in the dark, guessing what's behind your calm. Marcus Aurelius dropped the gold: the best revenge is to be unlike your enemy. Don't waste breath on their noise. Let them stew, let them wonder, let them fear the unknown you wield. You've got the tools now. Words to lift your waters, tune your will, green your space. But the real edge, it's knowing when to hold them back. How many of these tricks have you locked in? How often do you wield your tongue, or your silence, like a blade? Drop power is in silence in the comments below. Tell me you felt it. Tell me you're ready to wield it. Hit that like if this flipped a switch for you. Share it with someone who needs to wake up their words, or hush them smart. Subscribe to Victory Stoic to keep forging your grit, your smarts, your unshakable core. Thanks for writing this out. Your reality's yours to sculpt with every word you choose and every one you don't. Speak sharp, stay silent, sharper, and build a life that echoes without a sound.